Yummy cream. As they ate their lunch, Bill couldn't take his eyes off Shannon. She was very beautiful. Everything about her said she was comfortable and carefree. Shannon knew she was attractive, but she had no idea the extent to which she fascinated men, and Bill was certainly one of them. For almost the entire conversation, Bill's eyes glided over Shannon's body. He absorbed every image of her, as if her eyes were sending image after image into his memory. No detail went unnoticed, such as her hair, curling and flowing down the sides of her face. Like her personality, the hairstyle was not stiff, conservative, or orderly. They danced in the light breeze. They went their own way, but always in keeping with her beauty and femininity. Her lips were soft, with a natural curve at the ends, as if she had a built-in smile. They framed her pearly teeth and gave clarity to every word she uttered. The afternoon was very warm and pleasant, perfect for the light lunch by the pool that Shannon had prepared. The cloudless sky allowed the sun to warm them in their bathing suits. Shannon leaned over to Bill and set her champagne glass on the table. "I have my favorite dessert inside," she whispered. "Just sit there for a while, and I'll get it." Bill's eyes were fixed on Shannon as she turned away and headed inside. From the back, she appeared to be topless. The thin brown strands of her top were almost invisible against her tanned body. She hoped Bill was watching her and liked what he saw. Once inside, Shannon leaned forward, put her hands on the counter, and sighed heavily. "Oh my God," she thought to herself, "he's so cute." Shannon was in love with Bill too. It took a lot of effort for her not to stare at him. She would swoon at the sight of his broad shoulders. He was strong, confident, and commanding, but not aggressive or rude. With Bill, she felt calm and confident. After regaining consciousness, Shannon returned to the side of the pool with 2 bowls, a spoon sticking out of each. "I know it's not fancy, but to me it's the perfect dessert," she said smugly, holding one out to Bill. "Simple. Just fruit, ice cream, and a little brandy." Shannon returned to the chaise lounge, and they started eating. She moaned softly at each of the first bites. She wasn't kidding about this being her favorite meal. They talked while they ate, but then something happened that made it hard for Bill to concentrate on the conversation. "What's the matter, Bill?" "Oh, that's okay, I'm sorry. Carry on." She tried to resume the conversation, but Bill, without noticing it, threw a perplexed puppy dog look at Shannon. His eyes were focused on something, and his head was tilted slightly to one side. Bill was really focused on something. Some of the melted ice cream formed in one corner of Shannon's mouth and stayed there as she spoke. He kept waiting for her tongue to automatically swipe it away, but it didn't happen. She just kept talking and eating, and the ice cream stayed where it was. It didn't happen right away, but eventually her symbolism was picked up by Bill's mind. Shannon interrupted herself again. "What's the matter, Bill?" "Oh, it's nothing special. Just a little cream," he stammered, making vague and awkward pointing gestures in the air. "Yeah, over there in the corner. Yeah, just like that." Her tongue found the cream and took most of it. "I like melted cream with fruit," she smiled flirtatiously. She said it playfully, but she knew the power of the phrase. "Thanks for keeping me clean and organized, Bill, but you don't always have to control everything. Keep everything in perfect order so that everything is in its place." "Well, I just figured if you like cream so much, you'd rather have it in your mouth." The words barely had time to leave Bill's mouth before the blood in his head was throbbing. "On the contrary, my friend," she replied tokenistically, without missing a beat. "There are many different ways to enjoy the cream." They both knew the game was up. "Really?" It was the best Bill could come up with at that moment. "Sure." Shannon took a slice of peach. She dripped the white cream seductively back into the bowl, continuing. "Of course, there's the obvious way. Just put it all in your mouth and keep it there." Shannon brought the peach to her mouth, but on the way one drop fell and landed on her thigh. She opened her mouth and placed the cream-covered slice on her tongue. Slowly sucking it in, she closed her lips and continued the motion. "Well, most of it anyway," she mumbled, chewing a little, a hint of cream at the corners of her mouth again. "I just love peaches. They're so firm and sweet and juicy," she added. "You've got it pretty good," Bill remarked wryly. "It's no big deal. Anyone can do it. It's much better when a person does it with more drama." Shannon reached for another peach slice, not letting the excess drip into the bowl. She let it run down her firm belly until she clutched it over her open mouth. The remainder hit her tongue and slid into her mouth. Shannon completed this phase of the show by sucking the tip of the peach between her lips and then taking the whole piece into her mouth to devour it. Bill was now tensing up, but it would be a little while longer before he was noticed. At the moment, Shannon was fighting his mind. "You did that very well." Bill's eyes traced every dot of cream from Shannon's belly to her mouth. "At least what went in your mouth stayed there." "Sure, but it's easy when there aren't very many. It's not always possible if there are a lot." Bill prayed that his temptress would demonstrate it clearly. The image flashed through his mind, but it wasn't melted ice cream or peach that came out of her mouth. Shannon did not disappoint. This time she used a spoon filled to the brim with melting ice cream. Raising it over her open mouth, she poured the cream onto her tongue. Sure enough, some of it went down her throat. She swallowed what was in her mouth and smiled again, this time so that the cream still coated her teeth. Bill was mesmerized. "What about you, Bill? How do you like to enjoy fruit and cream?" Bill was not immediately able to answer. His attention was fixed on the drips and trickles of melted ice cream that were slowly dripping down Shannon's face. "Well, for guys, as you know, the process is different." He took a glazed blueberry out of the bowl, put it between his lips, and spoke very deftly while giving his own demonstration. "It's more important that guys use the right technique. Not too rough so as not to irritate the delicate flesh of the fruit, but not too soft either, because that makes sense. Patience, tenderness, finesse, that's what matters." With precise control, Bill moved the little blueberry ball between his lips from one side of his mouth to the other, running his tongue over it. Shannon felt something and watched in amazement as Bill handled the tiny berry. Before Bill devoured the delicious morsel, he turned his attention to Shannon, noting approvingly, "I can see you're definitely enjoying this." "I guess so," Shannon teased. "But maybe it's overrated. There are plenty of other activities that are just as satisfying." "Tell me about it," Bill encouraged. "Well, when the cream is rich and thick, it feels really good on the skin." This time, Shannon chose strawberries and white cream. After that, she pulled the strawberry into her mouth and ate it. Bill leaned over to Shannon and kissed her lips, tasting the wonderful sweetness of strawberries. As he did so, he reached for her neck. He kissed Shannon's neck, kissing and licking the traces of melted ice cream. Bill's kisses gave Shannon goosebumps that were unlike anything that only cold, melted ice cream could cause. Her skin was covered in tiny goosebumps. He remarked, "Oh my goodness, you sure are delicious." His comment had nothing to do with fruit and ice cream. The same could be said of his next comment. "And you smell good too." Shannon was starting to lose control of her senses. Now, it was all about having a good evening and nothing to do with dessert. When Bill was done, she dipped her finger into the bowl of cream and dripped it on her swimsuit. Just as Shannon was returning from the bowl, Bill pulled the untied shoelace down. Bill leaned toward her again and did something. To further stimulate him, she again dripped ice cream on another interesting spot. Bill was eagerly picking it up. Bill pulled away and began to contemplate his next move. "I know what you mean," he said with a devilish grin. "There are many ways to enjoy that cream without swallowing it. I like ice cream, of course, but then again..." His voice broke as he reached for something from his bowl. "You never want to interrupt the natural flavor of things." "I know exactly what you mean, Bill," Shannon replied. It was her way of saying that if we wanted something more, some things would have to come off. Bill picked up a slice of peach, but in doing so, almost all of the dripping cream fell back into the bowl. He slowly ran the peach over Shannon's lower abdomen, and his hand snaked to the untied laces. Shannon asked mockingly, "And what are you going to do with that peach?" "I just decided to try it with a little honey instead of cream," he replied. Shannon was now open to Bill. When Bill pulled away from their playfulness for a moment, he said in a barely audible whisper, "You're very sweet." Bill chose the peach slice on purpose. He used it as an interesting toy in his hands. As with the real thing, the sensation made Shannon just as eager to continue this conversation. Bill smiled as he looked at Shannon, whose eyes were closed in anticipation of the coming sensations. A flash of sensation swept over the lying Shannon. making her flinch. Bill pulled out a piece of fruit. Shannon opened her eyes, sat up in the living room, and asked, "Now what are you going to do with that?" "Of course there is. I really like honey." Bill seductively ran a slice of peach across his lips and then ate it. "That was all it took to continue this glorious evening," he continued. That was very, very nice, but honestly, I prefer to enjoy my honey straight from the source." "I wish I could," Shannon whispered back. As their tongues playfully swiped over the fruit, cream, and other treats, Shannon's hand moved upward. "So," she began, "you've had some honey, and now it looks like syrup for me." She took her hand away. "Can I have some more, please?" she said. Without waiting for an answer, she leaned forward again and reached for Bill's suit on either side. With his help, they were soon downstairs and gone. In the moment of all these processes, she said, "Oh, I really like this." Having accomplished her primary task, she removed her hand and moved on to the next stage. Now she wanted to taste him. Each time the effect was the same, but sometimes better. Bill put his hands on Shannon's shoulders and lifted her up. "Why did you stop me?" she said with a smile. "I bet if I had kept it up, we would have gotten back on the topic of cream." This teasing statement, of course, conjured up such a strong image in Bill's mind that he almost agreed with her. "In due time, my love, but I still haven't enjoyed my honey as much as I would like." Now, vivid images flashed through Shannon's mind. "All right, if you insist. He's all yours," she agreed playfully. She settled on her back, and Bill in turn hurriedly adjusted himself under her. Bill savored the moment, for this was not just a job to him. It was the most pleasurable pleasure that could not be rushed. The sensations raced through Shannon's body like lightning. He knew exactly how to torture and pleasure at the same time. He maintained the perfect balance between the two. He gave Shannon all the sensations she needed, but never as much as she wanted. She gently took her hands away from his head to encourage him to stay and continue. It was encouragement he didn't need. Neither of them could have been happier. Shannon pushed aside any doubts about how she wanted it to end. "Make me, Bill," she begged. "I want to finish this quicker. You make me feel so good," she said. "I'm getting close, Bill," Shannon said, panting. She fell over the edge. She uttered only a few words. After finishing the job from Bill, Shannon's feelings were subsiding, but not yet over when Bill suddenly left her. Opening her eyes, she saw that Bill had changed his location. She reached for him, almost in panic. How could he abandon her at the most crucial moment? He moved even higher. She looked down and saw something pleasant. Shannon let out a deep sigh. Finally. This was what was needed to end the monstrous feeling. Now it could run its course, filled with that wonderful feeling that only Bill could give. They were both savoring the moment. Bill continued. Her mind began to clear, her breathing becoming more regular. "I must say, Bill, you love your honey. There's still quite a bit of honey on your face." "I can't think of anything more pleasing," Bill replied, emphasizing the remark. "Would you mind sharing? I'd like a kiss," asked Shannon. Without waiting for an answer, Shannon took Bill's face in her hands and pulled him to her. She kissed him hard. Bill kept moving the whole time. "I enjoyed it very much," Bill remarked. "What part?" asked Shannon, still trying to catch her breath. "A lot of stuff happened." "Everything, of course. You taste and smell just wonderful. I could never get enough of you, but I especially liked the last part." "Oh, so you like the idea of me tasting my own honey?" "I have to admit that I do," Bill admitted. "Do such thoughts excite you?" Bill shuddered at the thought of those words. For a moment he found it hard to concentrate on the steady pace he was trying to maintain. Shannon whispered in his ear, "Do you want me to do it again?" A simple yes was all Bill could manage to utter. It was a little awkward, though. "So what now, Bill?" asked Shannon when the two of them were on the chaise lounge in unison. "Ah, what do you mean?" Bill was having a very hard time keeping a steady pace of movement. Shannon loved the feel of all those fruits and berries, especially with the cream. "We started talking about cream and the best ways to use it. We have some syrup and a lot of honey, but no cream yet. So what do we do now?" "Good question," Bill managed to utter. "So what are our options?" "Oh, you're a nasty devil, aren't you? Do you want me to tell you? Do you want me to?" "Yes, please do it," Bill began to push harder. "Let's see," Shannon began, in a deliberately sensual tone. "We can keep doing what we're doing, and you can squeeze the cream out. I'd like that to happen. I like to feel something like that. Then you could keep going until we both feel like it's going to get a lot." "Oh, that would be very nice, but I don't think that's what we both have in mind. Let's leave that for another time. This time, though, it has to end up in my mouth." Bill was having a very difficult time. Shannon's nasty talk only added to his efforts. Shannon knew that her teasing was driving Bill to the edge, and that's exactly what she wanted. Shannon took it to the next level. She wanted to shock Bill. She continued in a very deliberate tone. "I could take a jar of cream and completely squeeze it into my mouth." Bill only grunted. His mind and body were on the verge of overload. "Or we can drop the pretense. We could do it in the open. We could both watch it." "So what would it be, sweetie?" she said with a smile. As Shannon described the scenario, moving images of each of them appeared in Bill's mind. They were all very attractive. Finally, he managed to answer, barely intelligible. "The last one." "Okay, sweetie. I thought that's what you'd want," Shannon whispered softly in his ear. "I'll take good care of you. Are you ready yet? Wait until the last moment." Bill had just reached that point. "Oh, Shannon." "Well, then give it to me, Bill." Bill quickly pulled out a jar of cream and squeezed out just about all the cream he could. She said. "Lots of cream. Very sweet." Bill really wanted to lick them off and share the flavor with his lover, but that wasn't possible at the moment. Shannon managed to give Bill one last encouragement. "That's it, Bill. Follow my lead. Now." Bill's body tensed. His back tensed. His face heaved and he let out a deep growl. Finally, she felt it. Her nose filled with the scent. Bill looked down and watched Shannon. She was smiling at Bill, and his feelings kept coming up. Shannon really wanted to give Bill a show. Bill was weakening. Bill was already completely out of breath. Bill looked at Shannon, and she looked at him. Bill had moved to an upright position, but was still lying on the bed. Shannon finished with a delightful gesture that is reserved for gourmets. Shannon lifted herself up, leaning on her arms, and assumed an almost sitting position. She didn't dare speak. She really liked the feeling in her mouth from the cream, but it was time to change that. She looked at Bill again, her smile growing wider. She looked at Bill, slowly turning her head from side to side and back again. Shannon moved closer to Bill and gently put her arm around him. Then she did the same thing for the first time, and a shiver ran through Bill's entire body. "Oh my God!" exclaimed Bill. His legs were wobbly and struggling to hold him up. He sat down on Shannon's thighs. "It was so hot. I've never seen or experienced anything like that in my life." "I thought you might like it," she said, smiling slyly again. "I liked it too." Shannon ran her tongue over her lips, savoring the taste as if she were pulling out the remnants of hastily eaten ice cream. "Half the fun was watching your face. I thought you were going to pass out." Bill felt his buddy jump up. "You're right. I wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going to—" "Yes, that's what I thought. Haven't we talked about this before? Swallowing is good, but I think it's too exaggerated." "Shannon," Bill began to assert, "I'd love to always be subject to your opinion." "Thanks, Bill," Shannon said half-mockingly. "Now, if you'll get off me and sit next to me, I have one more thing to do." Bill, of course, assumed that Shannon wanted to clean up a bit. As soon as Bill sat down next to Shannon, she started, "You know, you think this is probably all for you, but this kind of thing really turns me on." Shannon continued, "I guess I'm a bit of an exhibitionist. I get like that when I know I'm eating with a man. See?" Something came back at Bill's place. "Keep doing that for me, Bill," Shannon asked. "I like it a lot." "If you keep doing what you're doing, I won't have any problems," Bill replied. "It would be my pleasure." Shannon intensified her attention. They both fell silent, each concentrating on watching the other. Bill savored the sight before him. The end of the perfect storm was approaching. They were both close to climaxing, but Shannon had to be first. Her breathing became very deep, but uneven. "I'm wrapping up," Shannon said, panting. "Kiss me," she begged. Bill stood up and kissed Shannon. Shannon moved erratically beneath Bill. They smelled each other, but not as separate odors, but as something different, better, a mixture of the essences of man and woman. She purred, "That was really good." The smell was musky, alluring and intoxicating. Shannon ran her fingers over Bill's lips, which were only a few inches from her own. "Come to me, Bill. Let me feel it. I want to feel it." As with Shannon, Bill's breathing became ragged, and he could take no more. His eyes closed, and his body tensed, and he finished what they had started from the beginning of the evening. When she finished, they wrapped their arms around each other in a deep, satisfied embrace. They kissed again, putting a final stop to the most abrupt day. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this mesmerizing journey through a story of desire and intimacy. As we recall the tantalizing events that unfolded between Bill and Shannon, let's delve into the psychological intricacies of this encounter, and also remind you that this video doesn't tell you all the intricacies of their interaction, and the uncensored footage is already posted on our Patreon, so join in. From the very beginning, we felt an irresistible attraction between our heroes, Bill and Shannon. Their chemistry was palpable, and as the plot progressed, the antics reached new heights. Shannon's teasing nature and Bill's reactions heightened the tension, creating a narrative intertwined with sensuality. Now let us pause for a moment to consider the psychological undertones of this incident. Bill's intense attention to Shannon, absorbing every detail, speaks to his captivation. Power dynamics invisibly shift between them, each enjoying the other's reactions. The interplay of control and giving of self becomes a dance, reflecting the complexities of desire and connection. As the narrative rises to a climax, we witness a unique exploration of pleasure, showcasing the diversity of human experience. The story, at its core, emphasizes the importance of communication and mutual understanding in close relationships. Dear viewers, as we conclude this compelling story, it is important to remember that the subtleties of desire and intimacy are different for each person. What may be exciting for one may not have the same meaning for another. Let this story be a reminder of the diversity of human connection. Once again, for those intrigued by the uncensored version of the story, the full version awaits you on our Patreon, where you can further explore the intricacies of this story uncensored. Your support is invaluable to the creation of new stories. Thank you for being with us in our storytelling community, and until we meet again, stay curious and open-minded.